本節目內主持人及嘉賓的言論純屬個人意見，並不代表本台立場。
Hi, welcome to Boiling Point. Today, Julie and I are happy to be with Chuck, who's going to tell us about a linguistic project involving a Cantonese to Cantonese written dictionary. Chuck, thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you here. So, when it comes to Cantonese, it's like everyday life. We have seen all these Cantonese in written form, in mostly like in a magazine, in our TV commercials. So, what's the deal with the written form of Cantonese? Is it like some kind of informal thing, or actually is there some interesting stories behind that?
Most people would think that, okay, written Cantonese is something new, like because we want like a separate identity for Hong Kong, so we started writing in Cantonese, and actually that's false. You trace the history of written Cantonese, like using Cantonese as a written language. You can go back to 200 years ago. We used to have a folk song collection called 粵諳 by an author called 趙子玉. So he collected a lot of folk songs sung in Cantonese, and he wrote everything in Cantonese characters. And after that, we had lots of movements to promote the use of written Cantonese instead of, at that time, 文言文, literary Chinese. So because classical Chinese was so difficult for native Cantonese speakers, most people wanted something simpler. And the easiest way is to write down our native language, which is Cantonese. And then after the Second World War, actually there was a movement called dialect writing movement.
Dialect writing movement.
And dialect refers to southern languages like Qiuzhou or Cantonese or Hakka. These languages were called dialects at that time, and there were writers who would write in Cantonese in all different forms, like novels and serious writings and everything. And it suddenly stopped in 1949 when the communists regained most part of China, and then everything stopped because that movement was supported by the Communist Party. And then they started to promote Mandarin as the only language.
Hang on, what? You said it wasn't supported by the Communist Party?
Sorry, the dialect movement was supported by the Communist Party from 1947 to 1949.
Okay.
And after that, the support stopped.
Okay.
And everyone switched back to Mandarin.
Okay.
And after that, we see a lot of these like Cantonese writings. But of course, they were not in pure Cantonese. Some of them had like mixture of different languages like Shanghainese or Standard Mandarin. And after a while, we thought that, hey, why are we writing in a foreign language? Mandarin is not our language. And we needed to switch from like the daily terms in Cantonese into Mandarin in order to write properly, so-called properly. So there was a movement to write pure Cantonese for movie scripts and light novels. And then after perhaps after the year 2000, we started using Cantonese online, like we used to have something called news groups. I don't know if you remember what news
forums,
group is.
everything.
Forums, yeah.
Twitter.
And it doesn't make sense to use written Chinese because we we were talking like we are chatting face to face.
Conversational.
They're conversational, so there's
It's
no
like everyday life thing.
Yeah, so when you think about everyday life items, all the terms are different between like Cantonese and Mandarin. Like, think about how you call your grandmother, or the paternal grandmother should be mama in Cantonese, and you have to write 奶奶 in written Chinese, which is the word for mother-in-law. It doesn't make sense, like if you write these things in a conversational context.
Well, actually, I've heard this idea or information which was like back at the time of Sun Yat-sen. There was once he actually attempted to make Cantonese the official language of the China, the post Qing, after Qing dynasty.
Republic of
Yeah, they want to make it the official language, but due to some kind of military or even political reasons, maybe since he wanted to get the support of all these northern warlords, and so he had to gave in and sort of like give up the idea.
That's a famous urban myth. So
that's a myth.
That's totally false. Like
Right.
Cantonese was never made an official language, and there were no attempt at making it an official language in Republic of China. The reason why we had this myth is because at that time, the area under control of the Sun Yat-sen military, I don't know how to call them, but anyway, only Guangdong was under control. So in some of the meetings, it doesn't make sense to use Mandarin as the communication language, because all participants spoke Cantonese.
Right.
There were generals from Qiuzhou, but they also speak Cantonese as a second language. So the best language to use at that time was Cantonese. But after that period, everything went back to Mandarin, because there are people who didn't speak Cantonese.
Right. It's like, but back in the, I think, Tang Dynasty, it's like, I'm not a student of history, it's like really, really long ago. It's like, for example, when it comes to all those Buddhism mantras, when they're trying to translate it in, to make it, pronounceable by the Chinese, they were using words to emulate the syllables, and I've discovered that if we pronounce those translations in Cantonese, it's actually closer to the original stuff instead of the Mandarin thing.
I have to correct you. I'm sorry, but that is another myth. Like usually when people promote Cantonese, one of the point is, Cantonese sounds like what we used to be in Tang Dynasty, so we have to promote Cantonese to preserve the culture from Tang Dynasty. But actually that's not true. Cantonese does preserve some elements from Tang Dynasty.
Right.
But Tang Dynasty was like 1,300 years ago, and things change, and imagine what would English be like 1,000 years ago.
All those I hear thy words, that kind of thing, right?
Even when I read Shakespeare, I don't understand everything. And Shakespeare is just, 400 years ago? So a period of 400 years will make two languages incomprehensible. Like a language become completely different in just several hundred years of time. And Tang and now is like over 1,000 years. Of course, two languages will be very different. And the reason why we seem to have preserved lots of these things from Tang Dynasty is that we are comparing us with Mandarin. So Mandarin preserved part of the Tang language, and we also preserved part of it. So if you compare us with Mandarin, of course there are elements that we did better.
But which preserves more, like Mandarin or Cantonese?
Mandarin preserves the onset or the initial part of the syllables, and we preserve the final part of the syllables. But both languages changed a lot during this 1,000-year period. So, of course, like when you read poems, because rhyming is very important in poems, you will feel that Cantonese is better in terms of preservation. But we also made a lot of changes during the time. And I don't like the idea to think of Cantonese as just a copy of old Chinese. That is not why we are valuable. Like when we talk about like why a language is valuable to a group of people, it's not because this language is old. An old language is old, then there's no value added most of the time. Cantonese is valuable to Hong Kongers not because of its age. It's an old language like all other languages in the world. All languages in the world are old because all languages have ancestors. And Cantonese to us is important because this is our language. So even we have lots of features that are not found in older varieties of Chinese. Like we have a lot of sentence particles, say ga, la, bo.
Oh, yeah.
We have lots of these. These are new stuff. These are new development within these 200 years, and we love them so much. And this is part of our language. And we should not abandon them because they are not found in Old Chinese. Also, there are lots of new words in Cantonese, and we think those new words are great. Like we can say the perfect tense in Cantonese, 食咗嘢, or the progressive form in Cantonese, or 哋做緊節目, we are running a show. So these grammar aspects are actually very new.
Right.
They are not from...
They're not from the Qing dynasty, they're not from the...
They're not from Tang dynasty.
The time before.
Yeah, but they are valuable to us because they are part of our language, they are part of our identity.
And they're so bloody efficient. It's like one single sound, and it expresses so lots of different emotions.
There are lots of beauties in all languages. So I think that's great, that's elegance to have like just one syllable expressing lots of things. But that is not the reason why I like my language. It's like there are lots of beautiful stuff, elegant things in Cantonese, but I like Cantonese not because of these things. I like Cantonese because that is my identity. And we have lots of bad things in our language as well. Cantonese has lots of swear words. Like some people like it, some people don't like it. I don't really like swearing, and I think swear words are fine, but I don't really like it. But I'm not going to abandon Cantonese because of the existence of Cantonese swear words. Like because I like the language, and I should not abandon anything within a language.
It's like one aspect of the whole thing that you're not really interested into, but they're also important.
Yeah, it's like if you like a person, you should love the whole person, not part of it, not just the body or the face.
Yeah. So when it comes to reading Cantonese, it's like the very first time I came across that was like when I was a kid reading a Garfield comic strips. And back at the time, the translators actually put up written Cantonese on them, which made it so, it was like really alive. It's like, I really know this cat, I really know this this poor guy who lives with this mean cat. And there's this magic in Cantonese. That is actually, I don't know, it's like they actually bring us closer.
Yeah, because that's our language. Like when you look at written Chinese, they are so foreign to me. Like when I was a kid, when I read those things, they were like, okay, I could understand everything written there, but they just sound foreign. They are not. I don't feel like
there's an undescribable distance.
Yeah.
Like every time we read that kind of thing, although it's all formal, it's all like I don't know. It's like this distance that we cannot, actually overcome. So when it comes to Cantonese, there's this saying. You mentioned something like poems. When it comes to rhymes, everything, and all these what people think Cantonese words actually can be found in all those poems like hundreds and even thousands of years ago.
Actually, there are two different schools, like the academic school and the non-academic etymologists. And actually, there are etymologists for every language. Like we call them folk etymologists. They are not professional, but they love the language. I will not say that they don't like the language. Everyone loves Cantonese here, I believe. And some folk etymologists try to justify their love by searching these characters in old books. And from a linguistic point of view, I appreciate them, but I don't agree with them because most of these attempts will be wrong.
Wrong.
Because we invent new words all the time. We even like create new stuff within a period of like 10 or 20 years. You can't assume that every single word in a language is from like 1,000 years ago. That doesn't make sense to me, and it doesn't make sense to anyone, I believe. Like, for example, like you have new stuff, like you have new technological advance all the time, and you need new terms for them. And you can't say, okay, this term is actually an old term, but that thing didn't exist at that time. Say, for example, a cutter. How do you call a cutter?
解刀.
解刀, okay.
Yeah.
Where does the word 解 comes from?
I really have no idea.
No one have any idea. Because it's a new thing. Like, we didn't have cutter like 300 years ago, I believe. Like, you can have a knife.
Yeah, it's a different word.
It's a different word, right. So when you have a new concept, you need a new word for it. And as a language community, you create new words in your spoken language. There's no need to create a character and write them down immediately because you just need to call something. And after a while, when you have the need to write them down, you start to search for the right character or create a new character for that. And for the case of Guy, we created several new characters and we decided on 2 of them.
Right, so that's the end of part 1, and stay tuned.
Operator, we finished the first section. They can cut it.
經錯過我哋精彩嘅節目，而家上嚟呢個網址就可以訂閱晒我哋8大頻道，付費之後仲可以重溫晒所有精彩嘅節目。記得要訂閱我哋嘅 YouTube channel 同埋讚好我哋嘅 Facebook 專頁啊！